Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Welcome to this episode of Dear Indie Radio. I totally said that wrong. How about Indie Beacon Radio? I don't get to play host that often, but every so often I do, and I just don't remember which show I'm on. But anyways, today we have with us Charlotte Canion, who has written a couple books. One of them is her newest book we're going to be talking about. It is a gardening tip tool type of book, but it has a lot to do with her family. So with that, welcome, Charlotte.
How are you, Alan?
I'm very good, thanks. You've written the first book about your dealing with your family and stuff like that, and the medical and stuff. And we'll talk about more of that later. But how does this book, a gardening tip book, relate to your family? Because and tell them the full name, because it is clear in that.
Yeah, it's called Me, Mom, and Friends Gardening Tips. And actually, Alan, it is the first of a series of 6 books. The second one's going to be called Flowers from the Bible. So there's going to be 6 of these little mini books.
Okay, and they are mini. They're maybe about that wide and about that tall. There you go. So what made you start writing this? Because this is totally different than your other book, You've Got to Love to Keep from Crying.
Right, and the sequel to it's coming out in 4 or 5 months as well. What happened was, my mother was always a gardener, and I always loved gardening. And while my mother was in the retirement center, and before she passed on, because my other book is about parenting your parents, I would take in big boxes of dirt and plants, and we would plant things. Well, I have a coach and mentor. I believe I've mentioned her before, but her name is Dr. Keitha Story Stevenson. She helped me with my first book, and she's an editor and everything. She said, Charlotte, you're a master gardener. You need to write a gardening book. Now, let me back up and tell you that going through my journey, I developed cancer. And what I learned from that, my 16-year journey, is halfway through it, is I got sick as a caregiver. I started looking at statistics, and 57% of family caregivers die before the person they're taking care of because they don't take care of themselves. And I'm sure you've been on many airplanes, and the first thing the pilot says is, you put your mask on first before you put it on your child or, someone that's with you. Same thing with caregivers. So when she told me to, get into my gardening and all, I actually went to the Texas Master Gardening Program, went through their year course. I've been a master gardener now for 6 years. I even stepped up from that, and I'm a Texas Superstar Specialist, and there's very few of us in the state, because you have to go to the beautiful city of San Antonio to be qualified, and you go to a 3-day crunch course to become a Texas Superstar Specialist. Anyway, she told me to write this book. So within it, I thought, okay, what do I want to have? So I pulled out some of my mother's best tips and some of mine. And then I went to a 13-state master gardening convention in the South. It covered, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, all of those southern states. And I just put out a little notepad, and I said, if you want to be in my Me, Mom, and Friends gardening tips, give me your tip. So I have compiled 53 tips from master gardeners over a 13-state area, along with some of my tips and, theirs from their families and, things. And I promise you, I've learned things from reading their tips. But anyway, I give them a credit on the page of where, they gave the tip. But some of my tips, people never even thought of. Some of them are common, like using eggshells. Eggshells are really great to put calcium back into the soil, and they biodegrade really slow. One of the things people don't know is your banana peels. Cut them into little squares and put them around your rose bushes. because the potassium that's in the roses love that, and they biodegrade real slow. So there's just a lot of little different crazy little tips in there. But the twist on my book is it's Me, Mom, and Friends gardening tips, but it's a little coloring book. So all the little sketches in it can be colored. And I'm now using those in nursing homes because I'm teaching nursing homes how to build raised bed and container gardens due to being one of their speakers for the North Texas area. So that's kind of in a nutshell, how my little book got started. It was very therapeutic for me, and it's just a lot of fun.
I can imagine it being very therapeutic for you. So the first one, you mentioned there's several of them. You have your first one about Me, Mom, and things of that nature. What's the next one going to be?
The next one is going to be called Flowers of the Bible. And the reason of that is I'm a member of the Christian Booksellers Association, and they want little point of sales at their cash register. So I thought, okay, so now I'm doing research on flowers that came from the Bible and what their meaning and all, like the lily. The center of the lily is made into a cross. There's many flowers that have a lot of religious undertones, and so I'm sharing those in that book.
Great. Now, why did you choose to make it a coloring book? Was it because of the people you work with, that being elderly and those that are sick, or just wanting to incorporate kids? What? No,
be honest with you, my coach and mentor said adults coloring, with markers and is really hot. And rather than just make it a little tiny gardening book, she said add a gimmick to it. So the little hook and gimmick was that it's a little coloring book. So grandma uses the tips, and she can sit, the grandchild down with it, and they can color it, and they can color with them. And even in some of the senior homes, they're using it. Now they're using, the colored felt tip pens or colored pencils in it, because you don't want to really think about seniors using crayons. Yeah. So and originally I was going to package it with crayons, but the packaging, you're in the industry. Some of this is harder to do than you really, you got it up here, but it's like, okay, that is not what I wanted. That was not what I thought. So right. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've got all the local garden centers have it in a basket sitting by their cash register, and it's an impulse thing for people to buy. I made it small, like, you can see that it's probably 6 inches, I believe, from top to bottom. It will fit in a stocking. So it came out right before Christmas, so it became a little stocking stuffer. So now, that's yeah.
I do know you travel around the state a lot. So in reference to what you just mentioned about great ideas, it would be kind of neat if you could find some kind of pencils or something that's color related that relates to plants. For example, certain flowers were used by the Indians to do makeup, palettes and stuff, and in the bed, different things.
Because I haven't really put my head around the other four. I know the first two we've got, the first one's done, the second one's in the works, but I hadn't really thought about that. But it did hit me today about some of I'll tell you why it did. I make gouache, and you probably don't know what gouache is. No. Gouache is made from beets. It is actually a cleanse for your body, inside, not outside, but it's a cleanse for your body. Well, when you cut up beets, your hands get red. And I know that back in the day, the Indians used the beets that they found, the wild beets, and to make some of and to put them on their horses. I know I've seen, they would do that. So yes, there are many, many, even going back to Cleopatra, they use stones and some of that red, limestone to, make their eyes real, demonstrative. And that's a great idea. And I'm going to borrow that from you. Unless you get it done before me.
That I won't do. You know how busy I am, so that won't happen. But if I've come across plants or things that have been used for that type, I'll send it your way so you have more information and stuff.
I appreciate it, because like I said, I've got 4 more books I've got to put together, because I've already committed. I've promised my coach. I said, okay, there'll be a series of 6. And part of the reason, and you know this as well, is, we can sell them individually right now, but eventually we could make a collection of, 6 of them. Or even after I get the first 3, you could buy 1 or you could buy 3 at a discount price. So, it's also one of those other marketing tools as well.
That's right. So we have a couple minutes left of this segment. Have you figured out what the titles or any concept of what the others are? I know you haven't fully figured it out, but have you got ideas?
Well, what Dr. Keitha was wanting me to do, she said, why don't you do one for spring and one for fall and one for winter? In other words, for the 4 seasons, but I won't call them that, but they will pertain to things you need to do like in the winter. Winter's when you need to prepare everything for the blooming in the spring. And give you an example is winter, November especially, is when you need to plant all your bulb plants. Your tulips or narcissus and all of those, because they have to have a certain number of days that they're cold before they will start growing and blooming, by April or May.
Right. If I'm correct, even our state flower, the bluebonnet, has to be planted or seeded in November and December to make sure it gets watered properly and stuff.
Right. And the other thing about that is all the seeds do not germinate every year. So you have to have enough of the bluebonnet seeds, germinating, and they may take 3 years before they even produce a flower. So they will not, and they have to be scarified, and that's another whole story, but that's if you buy them from, and just FYI, there's a gentleman down in Fredericksburg, and it's called Wild Seed. And he's the biggest grower. In fact, that's where Lady Bird Johnson got all the seeds that were sown, throughout the state of Texas, all along the highways. And he's the largest grower in the state of Texas of bluebonnets that you can buy. Just a little bit of trivia right here. Did you know that there's multicolors of bluebonnets?
Yes, pink and white, or red and white, as well as blue.
There's actually more than 7, 9. There are a lot of colors, but you can only buy the ones you mentioned on the market. The others are a specialty, but there is a maroon bluebonnet. And let me tell you why that happened.
Sure.
All the Texas superstars and the ones that came up with this, they're from Texas A&M. So they're going to have a maroon. You will never see a University of Texas orange bluebonnet.
That's a shame. That's fascinating and really interesting stuff. But we are at the end of our first segment, so we're going to take a break and let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
Hi, Brakefield and Berkey here, award-winning authors for the Techno Thrillers books, the Enigma book series. Technology, today's weapon of choice. The cyber good guys versus the cyber bad guys.
We invite you to join our website, theenigmaseries.com, where you will get sample chapters, sample audibles, book trailers, and you can sign up for our mailing list. The books are available in ebook, paperback, and Audible. Thank you.
Tom Gromes, father of market intelligence, writing business books that are a game changer. International author of nonfiction, has written the first and only books on the collapse of Russia and the first and only book on market intelligence. Check them out at mkintel.org. That's mkintel.org, mkintel.org. Hi, this is Alan at Ask Alan Anything, a podcast designed to help you learn about publishing and marketing your books. So join us live on Facebook at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. The page is Indie Beacon Radio. Ask any questions about publishing and marketing your book. We're here to help you, and we've been doing it for a long time. So I hope to see you then. Thanks.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. This is your host, B. Alan Bourgeois. We are at Indie Beacon Radio, and I have with me Charlotte Canion, who has written a book a while back, and we're going to talk about it briefly in this segment because she's got an additional part of it coming out. Her original book was You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, which chronicles not only her being a caregiver to her parents and stepmother or stepfather.
It's my father-in-law.
Father-in-law, okay. But
my mom and dad, my father-in-law, yeah.
Okay, and so you definitely talk about the struggle and how to help people deal with that, because it's definitely something baby boomers are going through now with their parents, and then their kids are going to be dealing with it because baby boomers are lasting longer. So that's definitely an important subject. So you mentioned earlier you have a second book coming out. Tell me about it.
Well, the next book that's coming out that's kind of the sequel to You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying is called The Guilt Syndrome, Caring for the Caregiver. And the reason we named it the guilt syndrome was because everyone thinks they didn't do enough. And maybe some didn't, and maybe some did more than enough. And what I want to share with them is enough is all you can give at that time. But it may not be everything you gave yesterday or as much as you're going to give the next day. So we're addressing the caregiver and how they need to take care of themselves. An example is if a neighbor offers to bring dinner, allow them to bring dinner. If a family member or a neighbor says, hey, I'll sit with your mom or your dad or whoever it is it could be your spouse. You go to the movie. Or if you can get someone to even take care of them for a weekend, and you get away. All that does is recharge your batteries as a caregiver and keeps you, and I hate to use the word sane, but keeps you sane, because it is a very taxing journey for you to see someone you love, whether it be your spouse or your parents, to see someone you love not be the person that you knew before. And as in my first book, I teach it with love, respect, patience, and forgiveness. The same thing for a caregiver. They've got to love themselves enough to take care of themselves. They've got to have patience with themselves. They have to forgive themselves. So, all the same rules apply, but people think they kind of got to be a martyr. And no, you don't have to be a martyr. There's enough help out there. In fact, the interesting thing is my journey started, I think, 17 years ago now with my father-in-law with dementia. And within 6 weeks, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and my dad was in the early stages of Parkinson. Back then, they didn't have all of the resources that we have nowadays. There are now senior daycare. In other words, if your mom or dad can't be left at home in your home, you can take them by, and the veterans are loving it. And I just found out very recently that Dallas, Texas has the first facility in the state of Texas that the veterans pay 100% of their care when they come on a daily basis. With that being said, there's also everywhere, their home health care. There are people that can come in for 2 hours a day and help bathe your mom and maybe cook meals or whatever, or they can be with them 24/7. So what I was saying is right now, if you have to go through it, there's more help than you can ever imagine. I'm appalled at all the facilities that I go at and the memory care and music. Oh my gosh, there is actually a degree you can get in music therapy, and they will come in and sing and play music, maybe on their guitar or keyboard, of the genre of your parent or your loved one. And everyone relates to music.
Yeah, not too long ago, there was a study saying that music helps draw the memories back out and brings them closer up to the front and stuff so they can remember easier and stuff. You mentioned earlier in the first half a statistic about how, deaths for caregivers. Will you repeat that, please?
Yes. Well, let me give you a fact first. 37 million family caregivers in the United States, and I'm sorry, 37, oh, now I've lost that number. 57% of the family caregivers in the United States die before the person that's ill, because they get ill themselves and they don't take care of themselves like they should.
Right, and that is shocking to hear and to think about, because I understand you get caught up in taking care of that family member, and it can be very easy to forget about yourself. But as you mentioned a few minutes ago, taking care of yourself has to be a priority. To quote you, and what the airlines say, a parent has to put that face mask on first, because if they don't, they're going to die, and then they're not going to be able to take care of the child. And so you've got to do yourself first so you can take care of the child. So the same thing applies for those caregivers. And so that's really an important statement. And that's why I wanted you to say it again, because that really, I mean, to think of how many people are dying because they're not taking care of themselves is tragic.
It's the stress. Any of us know that if you get stressed, all your immune system starts shutting down, and that's when you can get sick. And I guarantee it's a very stressful. So that's why, taking care of yourself is so important. And that's why this new book, The Guilt Syndrome, Caring for the Caregiver, is so important. I have people in line already wanting to buy the book. So we're doing everything we can to get it out. And FYI, I'm co-authoring it with Dr. Heatha, who is my coach and my mentor. Family health therapy is her doctorate degree. So this is just right up her alley. As a matter of fact, her and I go out and speak together quite often, and we call ourselves Two Women Talking. You ain't gonna leave all day.
And you have a estimated time when that book will be out and available?
We're looking at October, November, but you're in the industry. That can shift a little, but that's what their target is right now, because we still have some editing to do, and a few things here and there and yonder. Something I was going to tell you about my little gardening book that I didn't mention earlier. Like I say, there's tips from all over, and this one says the deer and critter deterrent. Place dog hair in the garden around the base of the plants, and it will deter deer and little varmints from chewing on your plant. I never heard about dog hair around the plant. But what I was going to, I don't know if you can see that, but see these little drawings here?
Yep.
I live in Denton, Texas. There's 3 campuses in my area, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get an artist that wants to have herself in a published book when she graduates, or he. It didn't matter. Well, I couldn't get anyone dedicated enough to illustrate my book. And all of a sudden, one of my sons said, well, your 16-year-old granddaughter wants to be a graphic artist. She did all my graphics within my book. And
Great.
So she graduates from high school this next year. She will be illustrated.
That's wonderful.
Book. And so if she wants to be a graphic artist, she's got that on her resume.
Well, we are at a point where we need to take a break, but that is great that your granddaughter is going to be able to do that. Hopefully that will help her get into graphic arts school a lot easier. We shall see. But we'll step away, let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back. National Authors Day is November 2nd, 2019. This annual event is getting a fresh look with a parade that starts at the Texas State Capitol and works its way south down Congress Avenue. Join us as we celebrate the joy of being a published author and the joy of reading. For more information about the parade, merchandise, and other events related to this event, please visit our website at authors.dearindy.org.
What would you do if you found out everyone on the town council were thieves and murderers? That's what happened in Bandera, Texas in 1873. John Cruder was the marshal, yet he needed to operate outside the law in order to balance the scales of justice. He is the Midnight Marauder. You can find his books on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com in paperback, digital, and audio. I'm Roy Clinton, and I hope you'll read The Midnight Marauder.
Thank you for watching or listening to this show. Indie Lector is proud to sponsor this programming. As a thank you for listening or watching, we would like to give you a 10% coupon code that you can use on our bookstore at indielector.store. Use coupon code VIDEO19. Again, that's indielector.store, coupon code VIDEO19 for a 10% discount on any purchase. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, Alan Bourgeois. And we have been talking with Charlotte Canion, who's written a couple different books. The one you see behind her, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying. And the one she's going to hold up is a little garden book. And there it is, Me, Mom, and Friends, which is part 1 of a 6-book series. And number 2 hopefully be out soon. So where can people find the books?
Well, these are in garden centers all over Texas, or they can go to my website, which is howtoparentyourparents.net, and contact me if they want my garden book. I do have a new website coming out, but it's not active right now, but it's going to be Charlotte Canion. It will be just my name. But it's, yeah.
And the same for Laugh to Keep from Crying?
Right, they'll be able to get it from, in fact, I've got pre-orders for the new book. Even people are going to my website and ordering my new book already. Because those that pre-order my book and prepay, for as soon as I get them, they're the ones that get the first, the first issue.
Now, are you autographing each one?
Yes, I am. If you get a hard copy from me, you get it autographed.
Wonderful.
And our autographs are worth a lot.
Yes, they are. So how can people contact you? What other than your website? And please repeat the website again, and other ways of reaching out to you.
Okay, they can go to my website and contact me through it, which is howtoparentyourparents.net, or they can follow me on Facebook or Twitter, and those are Charlotte Canion, and Canion is spelled with an I rather than a Y, C-A-N-I-O-N. They can also, if they're in the Dallas area, most of the garden stores have my little garden book in the stores. Let me see, Indie Beacon, you've got bookstores, has my You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents. And anybody that orders a hard copy and I send it to them, it will be autographed. And I've been speaking at a lot of retirement centers, and I will always autograph if they buy the book there, where I'm speaking.
And in reference to your speaking, you have information on your website so people can learn about the subject matter and be able to schedule you and stuff?
Right. They can go in it, and I have a publicist, so I will forward them the publicist information, and they can get the publicist information from there. And they can find out, like I said, if they follow me on Facebook, they can see where I'm speaking. And also, I've got about 14 YouTubes out there if they want to see me active. I just did a Facebook Live a couple hours ago, and it's already out there on YouTube. It's crazy, Alan. I just won another award from the IAOTP, and I'll be going to Las Vegas in December. And I'm going to be speaking at the hospice, their state convention in Oklahoma. I'm one of their keynote speakers in November. So all kinds of doors are opening up. And I think what it is I'm just sharing the people's story. And like I say, the little garden book just kind of lightens up the other, because the other does tend to be, although I teach with humor. Oh my gosh, can I share one of my favorite jokes?
Sure.
Okay, my favorite joke is my father-in-law. He always said he wished his body was a car because he traded in for a new model because the headlights are out of focus. He's got dents and scratches all over it. And when he laughs, coughs, or sneezes, his radiator leaks or his exhaust backfires. So I teach with humor when I'm in a group. They laugh. I'll have them laughing and crying, but I'll have them laughing more.
And this is a good spot where we can go ahead and end the show on a high note with a fun little laugh there, and I appreciate it. Again, real quickly, give them your website so they know how to find you.
It's howtoparentyourparents.net.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Charlotte. We look forward to seeing the second book coming out and also your gardening books. And have a good day.
Thank you, Alan. It's fun.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.